Why do I feel so distant from Allah? This was the question Yusuf whispered to himself in the silence of the night. Alone in his room, with the hum of the city outside, he sat there staring at nothing. Life was moving fast, yet something felt missing. He prayed, he fasted, but there was a void he couldn't explain. It was as if his heart was wrapped in a fog, heavy, numb, and confused. He asked himself, why do I do all the right things but still feel so far away? Little did Yusuf know that the answer to his question would change his life forever. One afternoon, as Yusuf scrolled through his phone, he came across a short video of an elderly man, eyes filled with tears, hands raised high in dua. The caption read, "He found peace after 50 years of searching." Something about that image struck Yusuf deeply. 50 years, he thought. It was as if the man's heart had been opened, while Yusuf's own heart felt closed off. That evening, he decided to visit the mosque, hoping to understand what he was missing. The mosque was quiet. Soft echoes of recitation lingered in the air. Yusuf sat down and looked around. A few men were deep in prayer, their foreheads touching the cool ground. Yusuf felt out of place. They looked so connected, he thought. He envied the serenity on their faces. Then, as he sat there with his thoughts racing, an old man, the same man from the video, entered and sat near him. Without even turning to look, the man spoke softly. Sometimes, the heart forgets its creator because it is too distracted by the world. Yusuf froze. Was he talking to me? The man continued, "We perform our prayers, our fasts, our rituals, but we rush through them like tasks on a checklist. Our bodies move, but our hearts are absent. That's why we feel empty." Yusuf listened quietly, the words piercing his soul. He realized this was him. His prayers had become mechanical, his worship hollow. "So how do I fix it?" Yusuf finally asked. The man smiled faintly. "By slowing down and remembering why you worship." Yusuf left the mosque that evening with the old man's words echoing in his mind. Why do you worship? He sat in his car and thought about it. Was it just an obligation, a habit, or was it supposed to be something more? He remembered a verse from the Quran he had learned as a child, "And I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me." Worship wasn't just about the act, it was about the connection. Yusuf had been focusing on the actions but ignoring the heart. The next morning, Yusuf did something different. When he stood for Fajr prayer, he decided to slow down. He recited first Surah Al-Fatiha carefully, word by word, trying to understand its meaning. All praise is due to Allah, the Lord of all worlds. He paused and thought about those words. How many times had he said this without thinking? But now it felt different. He imagined the vastness of the universe, the stars, the mountains, and everything in between. He felt small yet significant. For the first time in a long time, his heart softened. That evening, Yusuf sat with his mother. She noticed something different about him. "You look calmer today," she said. Yusuf smiled faintly. "I prayed differently today." Slower, she nodded knowingly. "You know, the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, 'The most beloved deeds to Allah are those done consistently, even if they are small.' Sometimes it's not about how much you do, but how you do it." Yusuf reflected on her words. Worship was about quality, not just quantity. Even small actions, done with sincerity, could bring one closer to Allah. Days passed, and Yusuf began to feel a shift in his heart. He didn't rush his prayers anymore. He recited with care, imagining that Allah was watching him and listening to every word. He opened the Quran and stumbled upon a verse that moved him deeply. "Indeed, the one who comes to Allah with a sound heart will be successful." A sound heart, Yusuf repeated. "That's what I want." He realized that to feel closer to Allah, his heart needed to be purified, free of distractions and insincerity. It wasn't easy. Some days, Yusuf felt the old numbness return. He would stand to pray but struggle to focus. Doubts crept into his mind. Am I doing enough? Why don't I feel connected today? But then he remembered what the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Verily, deeds are judged by their intentions." Even when it was hard, Yusuf kept trying. He reminded himself that Allah valued effort, not perfection. Yusuf started making small changes in his daily life. He began with simple remembrances of Allah. He also gave more attention to others. He smiled at strangers, helped his neighbors, and spoke kindly to his colleagues. Every good deed, no matter how small, brings me closer to Allah, he realized. One night, during Tahajjud, Yusuf sat alone in his room. He raised his hands and poured his heart out to Allah. He didn't recite any fancy dua or long verses. He simply spoke to Allah like a child speaks to his parent. Ya Allah, I feel lost. I want to be close to you. Guide me, help me, forgive me. Tears streamed down his face. For the first time in years, he felt like someone was listening. He felt lighter, as if a burden had been lifted. Weeks later, Yusuf faced a difficult challenge at work. His manager criticized him harshly for a mistake. In the past, he would have been consumed by anger and self-pity. But this time, he remained calm. He remembered the old man's words. The heart forgets its creator when it's distracted by the world. Yusuf turned to Allah in that moment, seeking strength and patience. Instead of reacting, he stayed silent and handled the situation gracefully. Yusuf began to notice subtle changes in his life. He no longer felt as restless as before. His prayers brought him peace, his worship felt meaningful, and his heart felt connected. He realized that closeness to Allah wasn't a one-time event. It was a journey. It required patience, consistency, and sincerity. Yusuf's story is a reminder for all of us. Closeness to Allah doesn't come from perfection. It comes from trying, failing, and trying again. It comes from slowing down, focusing on the quality of our worship, and remembering why we do it. When we purify our intentions and seek Allah with sincerity, He opens the doors to His mercy. As Yusuf sat by his window one evening, watching the sun set behind the clouds, he whispered, "I understand now, the secret to feeling closer to Allah wasn't in doing more. It was in being present, in slowing down, in turning to Him sincerely, and in finding Him in the small moments of life. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to take one step, and Allah will come running toward you." If you've ever felt distant from Allah, remember this: it's never too late to turn back. Start small, slow down, and seek Him with sincerity. Allah is closer to you than you think. Share this video with someone who needs this reminder, and let's inspire each other to take that first step toward Him. May Allah guide us all to a sound heart and a peaceful soul.